Coming live from Franklin, Tennessee, USA is our guest this evening. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Nicole Smith, defender of human dignity, founder of Dignity Defense. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll be talking to you about, fighting for the value of humanity. And you are doing this, you are reminding humanity of its immeasurable worth. Nicole, why are you fighting for humanity? Everybody wants to fight and wants to change the world, but you are actually have gotten down to changing the world. And you want to
Yeah.
remind humanity of its immeasurable worth. Two things. Why are you keeping up this fight for the better of humanity? And what is this immeasurable worth that you are fighting for? Why is it so full of worth for you?
Yeah. Well, honestly, with everything, it kind of comes down to life experiences. So I got a master's in law and public policy, and almost immediately after my degree, I ended up on the communications side of the human rights world. So I would conduct these campaigns around the globe for various different things where people are experiencing injustices in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, America, all over the world. And it just really affected me, on a deeper level, really wanting to exact change in people's life for the better, but feeling like I was just one person at a time, which a lot of ways is very important. But it wasn't until 2020 that this experience sort of took flesh and blood. My daughter was born in distress and ended up with the diagnosis of cerebral palsy. So it really just emboldened this intention of reinforcing the value of human life at its foundation. Because I realized that without getting down to the foundation of the human person and seeing us all as equally valuable, cultures all over the world can measure human value by different criteria. And especially since my daughter has disabilities, she experiences a different world than we do often, being judged by her capabilities. And so, yeah, that's basically how I got started and why I wage the fight that I fight every day. So,
Right, Nicole. Now I want to understand this. This is uh, you are contributing a lot. You have been doing this since the last several years, almost a decade now, I guess. And
mhm.
it is a fight which may look easy because you can go and do small bits, but you are
Yeah.
wanting to make a bigger difference, and that is why you have got this organization also.
Mhm.
The thing is that what are the challenges that you see in terms of humanity fighting for humanity? Is it humanity itself is posing a challenge to its own existence and leading to problems with so many people across the world? Or is it technology that you see as a challenge? What are you trying to save humanity or fight humanity from? Want to understand if you have
Yeah.
figured out
That,
who
yeah,
exactly
that,
is this fight against?
yeah. So I would say wonderful question. First and foremost, often it's culture itself really like perpetuates this type of rhetoric. So much so that people foundationally start to act upon this in their day-to-day life. So much so that, racism or classism or sexism, any of those sorts of injustices that occur in our day-to-day life is perpetuated by the individual because they don't understand what they're doing. Because, if you ask somebody in a conversation, well, of course, I don't believe that you should enslave someone. Of course, I don't believe that you should, do X, Y, and Z. That's this great injustice. But you see on the day-to-day life that they often are perpetuating it in different ways. So a big challenge is just defeating or coming against that piece of rhetoric that affects our day-to-day life. And so you were mentioning technology. It's almost a double-edged sword. So I got my start in the digital realm, and I would go to these conferences in which people were wielding these technology tools for marketing purposes and all these things. And we'd be in a circle, and they'd be like, okay, so what company are you with? And they're like, well, I sell shoes and I sell, coats. And well, here I was over here freeing imprisoned religious minorities out of Iran and Sudan. And, they're like, why are you here? It's like, because these tools should be used for good, right? So every day we're inundated across the globe, if you have access to a computer, to rhetoric that is counter to enforcing the dignity of the individual. But we should be using technology to do that too. So it's a lot of my career really was just really harnessing the power of these tools to see amazing things, impossible things to actually happen in places of the world that you just didn't think would be possible, So yeah, that was a really good question.
Right, right. Okay, tell us about this organized founder of Dignity Defense. What exactly is this about?
Well, Dignity Defense Institute is the full name at dignitydefense.org.
Yeah,
And a big part of the arm is, like I said, it's an education arm, really going to these digital spheres, talking about the discrepancies that we experience within culture, and really just raising questions. I have a podcast myself. It's called Pro Dignity, No Doubt. And a lot
right,
of what I do on that is really just bring people on, and I have discussions with them about their day-to-day life, like what they experience, people that were conceived in rape, people that were their children experienced very intense accidents that resulted in lifelong ramifications by way of disabilities. Really the key to that is just to make people understand they're not alone in their struggle, because life is struggle, man. You're like none of us are escape it. And I think especially in the Western world, it's all of our culture is so much geared towards avoiding struggle at all costs, that is our main goal in life. But when it finds us, because it inevitably does, we need to know that we're not alone in our struggle, and just being seen right where we are and knowing, hey, this person has gone through a really intense thing that culture tells us we should be unhappy and hate our life because it was so miserable. And yet here they are living with joy. Like, how do you do that? How do you come to terms with struggle? And it's a lot of times it's through just educating through our life experiences, but also just to pose questions. Like, I know India has different experiences than America does. And honestly, different parts of India are going to experience different struggles. Just like in the United States, the part I live in is so different than, going left or right from where I am. I'm kind of towards the center. We're in the southeast part. And our cultural experiences are going to be different. And so a lot about what we do in the education arm is just about letting people be seen in their struggle and telling them that they're important and that they should push through life struggles and still find joy through it all. But there's different areas of impact that we want to go as an organization as well. There's a public policy arm that's about standing in the gap for poor, public policy that's being pushed through. But we also want to be a connection between organizations that are really just care about people, but they just don't know how to find the people, and the people don't know how to find those organizational resources. So as an organization, we're really attempting to be very full-bodied approach to the defense of the human person at its foundation, if that makes sense.
right, right. It does. How do you choose issues and countries? Where would you focus your energies on? How does it work for you? Because you see now a lot of issues are going to come up in the US. You just had the midterm elections there, and the full term
Mhm.
elections will not be far off from now on. And already, even everybody, the whole world looks at the US, and at the same time, there is a huge debate within US itself as to where US is going. So in this whole
Mm.
concept, if you look at the outside world and focus your energy, how it can be a difficult choice sometimes, picking up issues and then focusing on that. So how do you as an organization work on that, decide finally on any particular thing to focus on?
Yeah, no, also a wonderful question. I think it's really important to understand that, again, India, it's got a rich, deep, wide cultural experience that is beautiful, but you also face different challenges too, and really understanding where you are as a country, the everyday struggles that you're experiencing, and almost like a cultural reality that you perpetuate are going to be different. So what I experience in the United States, what we do, our struggles are going to be different. And so recognizing that where you enter into different cultures are going to have different challenges, but foundationally, it's just the same. Really, if you look at the United States, and if you look at India, if you look at Uganda, you look any country, foundationally, usually the injustices that are being created is because they're defining human value by another criteria other than simply being a member of the human family. So slavery was based off of that. But slavery isn't just one type of slavery. Here in the United States, obviously, it was perpetuated by this idea of color, skin color, right? But slavery is not relegated to just that type. You can be socioeconomic background, sex, any type of criteria is going to be different in different parts of the world. So really getting back to what the original point being is, really look at the culture where it is, get down to that foundation. You are inherently valuable because you are human. There is no other addition. It doesn't mean you're a human only because you're this color, or you're this sex, or you're this religious association. Just foundationally, we're equally valuable. And then addressing each cultural offense against that is going to be need to be addressed on that cultural experience of each country, if that makes sense. So that's what
Yes.
we attempt to do organizationally. Yeah.
Right, right, Nicole. Let us look at this particular way. You have a background in law and public policy,
Yeah.
and when we uh, when humanity decided itself to move forward in the form of societies, it created governments. Then we
Mm.
created governments, and governments were supposed to be for the people, by the people, and of the people. And then you being with a degree, with a background in law and public policy, you moved, and the communication, you moved from that to taking the fight directly to the ground level and doing it directly. Somewhere along, I've also felt it that governments all across the world are somehow not able to keep up with the demands, or the demand may not be the right way, but aspirations of the people with which they were elected, or what they promised.
Yeah.
And then, so I want to understand how human beings, societies, and humanity as a whole can expect governments, administrations, and administrators from them, from uh, in terms of their upliftment, in terms of their saving them from future problems. Because you see, we can take of climate change, we can take of racism, we can talk of any other thing. They become just discussion points, and finally it is the person who is on the ground and some saviors like your organization who want to keep up and try to fight for the value of human dignity and for humanity. I just wanted to put it in such a manner so that you can answer it at your own pace.
Yeah. So AJ, like stellar questions. I'm really loving this. So I think a lot of our heart for the idea of looking to our governments for that solution is a lot of what limits our capability of evolving past, right? So one of the things, I'm kind of a student of history. It's something that's perpetuated a lot. So if you have policy that demeans the value of a human person, you'll get a culture that demeans the value of the human person. But if you have a culture that demeans the value of the human person, you're going to get policy. It's kind of like they rely on each other in a big way, in which we sort of need to break away from these big power players that are driving culture to make poor choices because we're relying on them to be our savior. As you know, a lot of I kind of have seen over the years, and this is a history thing too. It doesn't matter what corner of the world you're in, but if someone is seeking out power, they tend to they have this wonderful way of presenting themselves in such a way that they're easily followed, and they're easily followed right over the cliff. We just need to stop listening to those power players and letting them dictate how our culture is formulating ideas about value. And if we change it culturally, we change how who is put in power, right? Because now we're not going to hear that mess that the oil snake oil salesman is what we say in the United States, because it's just a dolled up version of oppression, and we're perpetuating it through that public policy process. So that's why we felt like it was really important to have an organization that sort of stood in the gap between the culture and public policy to prevent that from happening. So while we're sort of realigning culture, we can stop public policy from getting an immense amount of power to drive culture in the wrong direction. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on those things. It is complicated, but I think at the foundation, it's really not. We just need to change our ideas about stuff, and then we won't put these really poor choices into public policy process, and hopefully from the inside out find change, real lasting change, and not just a perpetuated cycle. Because the United States, man, it's a lot about a
Right.
perpetuated cycle of the same thing. I'm sure India is
Right.
like that too. So
Right. Perfectly all right. It's a good conversation, and we always may not get the answers that we seek on, but at least conversations take the thought process forward, and somewhere along the line, you just find that you need to dive into the sea to find that valuable thing one day. At least that's how it happens. So conversations are like that, and I
yeah, and
just
you're
want to.
right. Yeah, and I sorry, I just wanted to make the point that you're really right. We get to these places through time. Time and pressure make diamonds, right? So we need to apply time and pressure to this as well, and just continue to have these conversations over time, and that's how we find our diamond.
Right, absolutely. And talking of time, you see, humanity has, you know, come through such difficult stages, and again, we are at a stage where we don't know where we are moving. On one side, the artificial intelligence and machines are taking much more not control, but their role is growing by the day. On the other side, we have the climate change issues. Then we have the other side, social media, which wants too much of your attention. And
Information
then,
and
yes, and at the same time, uh, we don't know what exactly as a human being, where we are. So sometimes you just want to know what exactly is our value that makes us more, makes us human, makes us what we are. If you ask me, then I look at it that humans were humans because we had empathy. We could
yeah.
feel each other, we could know each other, we can think for each other, and that is what made us different from any other being. But
Near animal. Yeah.
yeah, right now, we are thinking about uh, machines which can be sentient,
Mm,
and we are forgetting about empathy. How do you look at the saving humanity with loss of empathy to such a great extent that we are just not aware of it? How do you look at
yeah.
it, who is so much working hard to save humanity?
Yeah, actually, I think of the famous quote by Mark Twain that says that basically human beings are the only animal that blushes or needs to. It's the idea that we're in possession of a conscience, an ability to see past just mere function as an animal, right? We do stand apart. And because we have the ability to conceive, have empathy, or to know that we are doing something wrong, means that we have a responsibility also to look past the variables that are presented to us within culture today and do the opposite, to see our neighbor and to love him so deeply that you'll wake up every day caring about him and his outcome in the same way that you would for yourself. And obviously, I believe very personally that it's important that I see myself that way. It's important that AJ sees himself that way, because if we see ourselves as immeasurably valuable, we will do that for our neighbor, right? And then he'll do that for his neighbor. And so always keeping in mind that essentially that truth that we are in possession of the ability to have empathy and to take that where we go every day, wherever you are in your day-to-day life. You don't have to be the president. You don't have to be some power player within government or some sort of public servant. Everyone is. And to look past that is really important, especially with these pressures that technology brings, to stand in the gap for that every day. Yeah.
Right, right, Nicole. And let me ask you one last question, and that will answer for almost all of humanity if we look at it that way. Your daughter had a difficult birth, and it was a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. Now she is a child, and as she grows up, she will look at the world and will try to get as much as this world of this world that God has made for her, like
Mhm.
everybody else.
Yes.
Everybody has that equal stake in this planet, and she will want that. Are we giving that space, that stake, that life, that future to your daughter? How do you see her life going forward with the type of humanity that we have now and the humanity that you are working for? Does that, how do you look at, and this will answer a lot of questions for everywhere. If you see, being in the US, you still can manage a few things, but insurance is such costly. Everywhere
Yes.
else, people don't even know about insurance, and a lot
Mhm.
of people who have this particular distress or diagnosis, then will they be having a life with dignity? And that
Yeah.
is not only just for one illness or a problem, but for so many diseases that will be a part of humankind as we move forward. We are still grappling with COVID, and not everybody has been able to get the amount of care that they needed, whatever the reasons, healthcare deficiency, and whatever governmental deficiencies across the globe. This one question, I'm sure, will sum up the answer for everybody else in terms of the fight that you are making for the dignity of humanity going forward. That's my last
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it does go back to the point that we do have a responsibility to see people in their struggle, right? So I have family members that are part of the disability community, but this was different in the sense that it's my daughter, right? I'm walking this out with her, and sort of feeling through a process that I didn't know how, as a mother, to navigate just this world that I was thrown into within moments of having given birth to her. So I basically had this whole world opened up. So cerebral palsy, there's a lot of forums online where I had access to this global group of people, and I saw how people were experiencing and dealing with it wherever they were in the world. So here, in the United States, I might have access to equipment that can serve my daughter a little bit easier, where other places in Africa I was noticing, or in Sri Lanka, or they may not have access to those things. But I was seeing so many people struggle right where they were, and there was a community that was there that gave me just this intense desire to see people where they were through my own experience as a mother, watching my daughter go through this. And I have a responsibility, like, not just to Cosette, my daughter, but I have a responsibility to all the other individuals within the CP community and all the other people that are struggling. And a big part of this organization was about meeting that desire to be where they were, and serve them in the way that my daughter gave me purpose in she gave me that connection that I didn't have before. And also, you know what? She gave me a deeper understanding of value transcending ability, right? So, as a mom, it was hard. Every day I had to wake up and experience an immense amount of struggle just to get through the day because of the demands that came from the care for my daughter, right? Just that knowledge of knowing there are other parents going through that too. And I care about them so much so that I want to figure out a way, because we have a responsibility to find a way to serve them wherever they are in the globe. And again, there's a lot of challenges that different governments are going to create for different people. But we have a responsibility to do something about that and figure out a way around those challenges so that people know that they're not alone. Yeah. So.
Right, right. A lot of people need to know that they are not alone. So, how do they
Mhm.
connect with you? Your story inspires, your work inspires. So, how do they connect with you? How do they know more about what you do, what your organization does?
Yeah, so I would love for you to visit us at dignitydefense.org. That's sign up for our newsletter there. Also, you can get access to all of our social media accounts there. As we continue to do our work, you'll see how that's executed and actually how you can have a point of impact where you're at, right? And then also get on to Spotify or something and look up our podcast, Pro Dignity, no doubt is the name. And just listen to stories of people and feel encouraged. Yeah.
Right, right. And as you look back on your life, as you look back on the time that you have passed fighting all that for humanity, for your daughter, how do you look at the future now? How do you look at it in the coming days with all the issues that is surrounding humanity? Is it full of optimism? Is it full of something to be cautious? How does it work? What do your eyes see?
Yeah. So one of the key lessons as a communications expert, I always really try to impart upon people is that we need to maintain a balance of hope and hopelessness, because it's at the point of that center, and then we find the most action in ourselves. The hopelessness, seeing that there's a need, right? Enough where we're moved emotionally in a deep and powerful way, and hope that there's actually a change that can be exacted. I'm living in that tension every day I try, so that I never not move forward in a sense of purpose every day, to take action in a way that I think will really be something good for everyone, if that makes sense. So
On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on to
Thanks,
this.
AJ. Appreciate it.